Hello and welcome to the first episode of Patch Tennis. This is Game 1, Minifreak versus Hydrasynth, Shot 1. Presumably that doesn't mean very much to you now, so let me explain exactly what this series is. This series is a collaboration between myself and YouTuber Macaron Afterparty. What we will be doing is attempting to highlight and contrast and demonstrate the strengths and weaknesses of a couple of synthesizers. The way we will be doing this is by going back and forth making patches. So what exactly does that look like? Well, each episode we will receive an incoming patch made on their synthesizer. And that patch will be performed, something about 1 minute long, and set to video. We'll watch that and we will make our response to that patch. Now that response is not going to be attempting to replicate that patch, but it's meant to be making something that might fulfill a similar role. We will then play back and perform that response to the same video that they set their initial incoming shot to. Then we will move on to the final section, which will be the return. In the return, we will create a patch on our synthesizer intended to challenge the other participant. And offline, we will record a performance of that and we will send them a video of us performing this patch to whatever we choose. So in that way, we're going to go back and forth between a pair of synthesizers and producing functionally similar patches, though sonically different. And we hope that in watching our sound design process and in listening to the patches that we create, you'll get a feel for the strengths and the weaknesses of those synthesizers. In this case, I'm going to be using the Ashen Sound Machine's Hydrasynth, and they will be using the Arturia Minifreak. So without further ado, this is their opening shot, incoming to me. Let's watch. I'll be quiet initially and then maybe I'll comment at the end so we can get a feel for where we'll go. So I would describe that patch as a drone. It sounds like there are harmonics being picked out, which makes me think there's sort of a moving filter here with resonance, which is picking those peaks out. I can hear the way it's performed. It's playing, I think, initially just one note, then another note joins it, and another note joins it. So I think the way that we're going to do this then is going to make a pair of resonant filters using the two filters on the Hydrasynth. Let's just get started and let's see where we end up. I've got a timer visible, so my plan is to try and take less than 16 minutes. Arbitrary deadline, but let's go. So, init patch. First thing, I think a saw wave is going to be too strong for this, so let's get a triangle wave. I think maybe a single oscillator is going to be enough for this because it's going to be the filters that really do the work. So first thing, if I want a pair of resonant spikes, I'm going to set the routing of the filters into parallel so we can get two resonant peaks working here. Secondly, I think I'm going to run them both as bandpass filters. So let's look at filter 1 and let's pick a bandpass I think there are a couple. That's a bandpass. And then filter 2, I'm going to morph into a bandpass. So that looks around about bandpass there. Now I'm going to add a little resonance to both of them. And I think I'm going to need both filters to be tracking the pitch of the note that we're playing. By default, filter 2 is not pitch tracking, so let's set that to 100%. So now let's sweep one of the filters and try and pick out some harmonics. Maybe more resonance. Not quite self-resonance. So that's now picking out some harmonics. I'm going to have to adjust the resonance and adjust the pitch here. Let's go to the second one. Turn that up high. Let me try one of the other. I guess that should be fine. I'm just wondering, I haven't really... I'm not really picking up on any harmonics there. These are parallel routed. Okay, here's the problem. I'm only sending the filter to the oscillator to one of the filters. So now let's set the balance between the sends to the filters to 50-50, and now now I'm picking up some harmonics. So now I'm going to firstly extend out the envelope here. I'm probably going to be playing this more like a pad. So let's get a pad envelope shape. Already sounding okay, but obviously we're going to need a bit of animation here to make this more interesting. So this is where the LFOs are going to come in. LFO1 has a normal routing to both of the filters. I might just use that, and I might go for opposing motion. So let's just see what that sounds like. So LFO. I've got the LFO rate quite high, which is fine. I'm just listening that it's moving through enough harmonics. Okay, so I like the sort of chirping that we're getting as it's picking out the harmonics. Now let's turn the rate down. I'm tempted to add another oscillator in here. I'll add a triangle, and let's just listen what we get when we bring in some more of these harmonics. So I've switched the filter routing to 50-50 on both of them. And now And now the interesting thing here, I think, is going to be So rather than the band pass, I'm tempted to try a low pass filter here. So let's just try that out. Let's just change this to its low pass equivalent. And this one we can morph into a low pass. I think I might change the shape of the modulation to a triangle. Another thing I think I'd like to do is have these oscillators free running. So I'm trying to focus just on this second oscillator, so what I'm going to do is turn the resonance on filter 1 down and resonance on filter 2 up. I think that was moving too quickly. So let's turn this rate down a bit more. So I think this is working. It's something like I had in mind. Now I think I could do with some effects just to add a little color to this, and then we can go to perform. So let's listen through these initial effects. I think I might go for a phaser. Let's just listen to it a bit. Too much depth. Too much feedback. I think that's working. So now for some reverb. It's getting a little bit loud, I think. So let me turn the amp down. Maybe even a little further. So now I think I need one more element, which is going to be a modulation that I can bring in here. So one possibility is to try and change the timbre here a little bit. So one way that I could change the timbre is maybe using a mutant. So I think maybe try the pulse width. I'm going to set those up about the same way. Maybe I can the depth up a bit more. Then I can set myself up a macro, and I think what the macro can do is the macro can turn up the resonance a little bit, and it can turn up the wet-dry mix of these. So let's go for it. Macro 1, assign. So first thing is going to be I don't seem to be able to turn this directly, so filter 1, next one, filter 2, next one, mutant 1, next one, mutant 1, next one, mutant 3, next one, mutant 3. So probably I should have made this to 2 separate modulations, but in any case, here we are. So this is going to be resonance, this is going to be resonance, this is going to be depth, and this one will be wet-dry, then this one will be depth, this one will be wet-dry. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to turn this macro up so that I can hear the effects as I set these parameters. Okay. So this is the maximum effect. Set the wet-dry high. I'm going to match that. So 18. Did 106. So I have a macro now. Okay, so I think that's something that's reasonable. I think it's in the spirit of the original sound, if not exactly like it. So now we're going to go back and we're going to look at that video again, and I'm going to try and perform this patch against it, and we'll see how it works before we come back and do what I call the return. Let's go. Okay, so I think that works reasonably well. Now I'm going to init that patch and I'm going to create my return. So this is the shot which Macaron After Party is going to be responding to in their episode. So I'm thinking I want to start with something fairly simple, and my thought is simple might be a sort of synth string. So first, synth string. I think when I think of a synth string, I think of a sort of stick slip motion of a bow, which is like a saw wave. So I think the saw wave that we have is already a decent starting point for this. But where are we going to go from that starting point? I think I would like all 3 oscillators sounding, and I would like them to be panned, and I would like them to be maybe playing... Possibly the middle one will play a different note. So let's say I'll use oscillator 3 to be the middle, And I'll use these other two, and they will both play a fifth up. So let's bring them all in. And I think I can already imagine I would like a bit of pan going on here. So I'm going to pan two of the oscillators out. I think now I need to balance that volume level there. So this is my main oscillator. These other oscillators are going to support it. Now I think I need some motion for each of those oscillators, and I need something to make this feel like a synth string. So first, I want some envelope. So already sounding like a string, but I think what's missing here is some sort of movement. And that movement, I'm thinking that I'll use mutants, and I quite liked the pulse width modulation, but I'll use the squeeze algorithm instead of the original algorithm this time. And let's just listen to what that sounds like manually modulated. So I'll set these to about the same value. And I think what I'll do then is I will also... Maybe I'm going to be moving pitch as well here. So what I'm thinking then is I'll have an LFO moving the pitch of oscillator 3. I'll have an LFO moving the mutant depth of oscillator 2, oscillator 1, and the pitch of oscillator 2, and vice versa. So I'm going to have this sort of cross configuration, so as I only use 3 LFOs. So that means I want this modulating this. I want this modulating this. And this modulating that. And this modulating this. And this modulating that. Okay. So let's have a look at this. This is my pitch, so let's listen to this first. I'll adjust the rates afterwards, but I think that's about the right amount for pitch, so 1.5 is the number I've got there. So this one can also be about 1.5. This one can also be about 1.5. So at the moment, these LFOs are synced with one another because they're all at the same tempo and they're all key synced LFOs. So I think what I want to do then is I want to turn the key sync off on all of them. And they're still in sync because they're all running at the same rate. So let's turn these rates down. So that's 0.19. 0.18, and let's say 0.2. Sounding okay. I'd also like to do the pulse width modulation that I was talking about as well. So let's listen to what this sounds like. We have 2 of these. So this is this mutant 3, and we want it to be modulating the depth. Also like this to be modulating the depth. So maybe somewhere around 14, 15 works. So now I think we need to filter out some of these harmonics. By default, the filters are arranged in series, which makes sense. So I'm going to use a low pass and a high pass. So first, let's try and tune the low pass. By default, this is pitch tracked, so I'm fine. I don't want to take too many of the harmonics out there. Let's listen for some resonance. Touch of resonance I think works. So now filter 2, let's, oops, I did not mean to do that. Let's go back and do that again. Okay, filter 2. Let's adjust this. This is currently a high pass, which is fine. And now let's go and turn on filter tracking because it's not on by default. 100%. What I'm going to do actually is probably close these filters up a bit, because I would like a macro to be able to open those up so as we can get more bandwidth. So I'd like it to sound a little bit thin in this default mode. Okay, so I think this is working reasonably well. So what should we do here? I think what we should do is add some noise and maybe some ring mod. So what I'll do is I'll turn on solo. I'll solo the ring mod, and the ring mod's defaulting to oscillator 1 and 2. And more importantly for us is the noise. The ring mod's just to add a bit of texture there. So let's turn on some noise. I'm gonna unsolo that and just listen to the character of the noise. Quite like that grey noise, it's quite strong, so still a little bit strong there. Okay, so maybe a little velocity sensitivity would be in order here. I think if I were spending more time on this, I'd definitely add a lot more modulation, but I don't think I have that much time to go and do that. So first I'm going to add the macro that I described, which is supposed to increase the bandwidth of this filter. So, macro assign, macro edit, source destination filter 1, destination filter 2, both cut off, and now let's go and maximize that value. Go back to edit and let's listen. So you can hear much more of that fizz is coming out there. And again. So now let's try the macro. So I think just a little bit more shaping here. So I'm going to have the attack adjusted by the velocity and maybe the release adjusted by the velocity. So mod matrix adjusting. What do I want to do? I'm going to say 3, envelope. So the reason I pick LFO5 there is LFO5 is further along the list, so it's easier for me to find it. Again, I'm going to assign, and we're going to do LFO5 to the envelope. I'm going to do velocity off. So this is the initial velocity, and this is the release velocity. And I want the release velocity to affect the release parameter. Okay. And the attack, more. So now I would like to add some of these other parameters. This analog parameter, it's going to do some detuning and other adjustments. Turn on warm modes, turn on randomized phase, just to get a bit more variation, and I'm going to add a bit of area width here. So I think I'd like to add a bit of chorus. Maybe this is a bit much, and I think maybe the pitch modulations are a bit aggressive. So let's try 1.2 as the amounts here, just to... Unfortunately, there isn't always a very easy way of making fine adjustments with these encoders. Sometimes you just have to turn them with care. I like the chorus. I think we need a bit of reverb. Probably a plate reverb will be good here. I feel like maybe in the middle register it's a bit too bright, so what I might do is turn these two oscillators down to 0 and turn this one down to -5. Let's try the filter. And I think also perhaps these depths are a little bit too high, so let me turn those down a bit. Sounding a bit better. Let's add one last effect here, maybe a phaser. So, what have we got? Just turn this up a little bit. So I think what we have is something of a slight twist on a classic synth strings. I think it's a usable pad sound. I'll be interested to see what their response to this is. But for now, I think that's all I want to do. So offline, as I said, I'm going to perform about 1 minute of this. I'm going to set that to video, and I'm going to send it over to Macaron Afterparty, who is going to make their response to my patch. I hope this series sounds interesting. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, and I hope you will join me for some more episodes. But most importantly, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me here today, and goodbye.